So welcome everyone to our faculty panel. As you know, before every OneBook, we usually kick off the semester with a faculty panel that highlights what different instructors are doing in their classes and what disciplines, and how perhaps give others ideas of how you can use the book. This fall, the book is I Am Malala, which is based on a young woman who got shot by the Taliban for pursuing her education. And I'd like to introduce the panelists, starting at the end.
I'm Betsy Kemper-French, and I teach English.
I'm April Lavoy, and I teach health sciences.
And I'm Luann Falls, and I'm teaching ESL.
And I'm Susan Moore, and I teach history. So, did you like to start, Betsy, on how you were going to use it in your English classes this semester?
Sure. I'm using it in my English 091 classes, and that's one of the newer developmental courses where developmental reading and writing is integrated. So these students are emerging readers and writers, and usually in this class we spend a lot of time reading shorter articles more closely and really kind of digging into them and rereading and annotating and summarizing and all those kinds of reading skills, and then writing about them. So I think it's also good for us to read a longer piece together and talk about what that's like and the struggles they have with it, and so I always assign the OneBook, whatever it is. And this semester I'm reading it along with them. I have not read it previous to class, so I'm kind of discovering the book at the same time they are. They read a chapter for each class, which means they're reading 2 chapters a week, which seems fairly manageable because they're 9, 10, 11 pages. And they have to read the chapter, and then they have to do some kind of writing and response. And I'm really loose about that. This is a very low stakes part of the class. As long as they're keeping up with the reading, as long as they're journaling on it, they could write about what fascinated them, what they were confused about. They can kind of react to it that way. Or a lot of students just kind of take general notes on what they read about. And then usually we have about 5 or 10 minutes during each class where we kind of discuss what happened in chapter 4, what happened in chapter 5, what was interesting, what was your response to it. And then at the end of the semester, they actually, as part of their final exam, they collect all those journal entries, they hand those in, and they answer some long answer essay questions about the book. And they're not so much analytical, they're more kind of personal response to it. So what we talk about a lot with this book, or any of the OneBooks that we've read, we talk about the content, like I said, like what do they find interesting or curious, or what surprised them, and that kind of thing. But we also talk about the process they're going through for reading it. And so we're on we just talked about chapter 4 today. We're like in chapter 4, chapter 5. And a lot of students in the first couple chapters were challenged by all of the exposition about political history and unrest and culture and the father's childhood, and that's told in a very non-linear way. It's kind of there's not a linear structure in those first 3 or 4 chapters, and that threw them off a little bit. We talked about, how do we manage that kind of reading or that kind of chapter? There's not an actual story being told yet. I mean, there is in a larger sense, but her story hasn't started yet. That kind of tension that I'm assuming will take us throughout the rest of the book hasn't begun yet. So how do we handle that? What do we write about it? What's frustrating about it? And we kind of talk about that as readers, and how we're enjoying or being challenged by the book, and how we're managing with it. So that's what we're doing in English 091.
And I teach in the health science department. So the particular course that I chose to integrate this book into is the HLT 106 course, which is medical terminology. It's a 3-credit course. And what I want to do with this book is I want to incorporate some parts of this book into the class as a case study. We use case studies. We take real-life examples out there in the world, and we incorporate it into medicine, basically. And this particular course utilizes some anatomy, physiology, some pathology, surgery, trauma, different types of medical terminology and medical cases, case studies within the course itself. So I would like to use this book and Malala's experience in the class. So not just the traumatic injury that she experienced, but also psychologically. You know, as you had, you know, previously mentioned about, you know, the status of women in the country and how they felt, you know, subordinate to men. You know, that's also psychological, and we do talk about the nervous system and psychology. So I want to also tap into that as well. Some other things that I wanted to tap into also was, you know, the dress and how she was surprised with the dress that the women in Europe and the United States, they were less modest. And that also was psychological effects. So I wanted to tie that also into psychology and digestive, you know, because we also talk about eating disorders in that class as well. And then, of course, with the injuries that she experienced to her skull and her ear, I wanted to tie that into the anatomy and physiology of the skull. And I also wanted to include some more critical thinking. So what I plan to do is to ask them more in-depth questions, such as if the bullet had penetrated deeper into the skull and perhaps impacted the brain on that left side, what potential injuries would she have experienced? And so I want to use that kind of critical thinking, and the students seem pretty enthusiastic about it, so they're really on board with me. But every single semester I actually use some sort of real life experience. So this semester I plan on using the book, so it's going to be a very promising semester, and they're excited about it. So we're actually going to be starting to incorporate the book next chapter, because they have to be into a few chapters before we actually start to combine different body systems and, you know, potential impact, for example, of the bullet and how it had, you know, affected her. So they have to be a little bit more versed on body systems.
Are you having to read the whole book or only excerpts?
I am going to, there is copies in the library, so I'm asking them to read the whole book, but it's not mandatory. The class itself, they have to read 14 chapters of a huge medical terminology book. But there's YouTube clips, there's interviews of Malala that they can also use as a resource. There are several students who have read the book, so I'm welcoming them to share their experience as well. So we're actually going to, you know, help each other, and students are going to help other students learn as well. So it's a very inclusive classroom, and so it should, like I said, it should work out very well, but they're very interested, so it should be great. Thank you.
I kind of wanted to go to the OneBook website, because I don't know if you're like me, but I struggled with the new website and getting to old places, but I thought I knew where they were. Here we go. Sure. Okay, I found the easiest way to get there was just typing OneBook up into the search, and then scrolling down. Oh, right here. Yeah, just clicking on OneBook. And then here, even though it says the tragedy of the whale ship Essex, go ahead and click there. It will get there. Okay. So again, while we wait for that, oh, there it is. I'm Lillian, and I'm teaching ESL, a conversation and listening class. So we're not spending a lot of time in the book, even though we'll pull out some quotes and go in detail with those quotes. But right up front, this is it says curriculum resources, and ESL is first. So yeah. I was lucky enough to be the one that got to pull the resources together for this, and so I think there's many that overlap beyond ESL. So particularly, the one that I'm going to use is actually the one that says risk on it. Where is it?
Number 2.
Is it lesson 2?
Number 2, thank you. Risk. All right, so just to let you know how these look like, what these look like. So I put them down. It's good for reading, writing, conversation. And this one was a lesson plan written by the New York Times, which I thought was very interesting. And it has to do with risk. It also says on my notes there to scroll to the bottom, because otherwise you get gingham style motion words at the top. Now you may prefer to watch that right now.
Right,
And you know, if you pull it up with a class, that could be very fun to see the quick little gingham style thing here going on. But right at the bottom is Malala. Okay, here it is. Reflecting on Malala, and one of the things that they suggested was, and I thought it was a great idea, you just write the word risk on the board, and then explore the what people understand about risk, and then you know, risky behavior, risk. When is it appropriate to take a risk, and when is it not appropriate to take a risk? The whole idea of risking your life. So down here, they also give you a link that I thought was really interesting. Let's see here. To the art. Yeah, okay, it's on here, but it talks about the a journalist, a photojournalist who gave his who was shot while he was embedded in the military in Afghanistan, and the whole, just talking in general about many occupations hold risk, and this particular article talks about how it was just part of his nature, and it was so low key about his risk, but he was also so passionate about his photojournalism that this was an important enough to give his life for. So what professions or what risks are involved in their own professions? I began to think about how this might be appropriate for CSS too, as they are exploring careers. But and this one, back to ESL, we well, actually jumping forward, we in April we have an international festival where the students display their countries, and so I was thinking, and each teacher gets to decide what the focus of those displays are. And so I'm thinking for the spring that my display would be focusing on education in their country, women in education in their countries, also people in their country who have sacrificed for change to happen. So every country has those leaders who have helped their country move in progress. So then, so backing up to get ready for that, there's a lot of thinking that we can do to develop that idea. And this this particular website here suggests that as you go from risk to show this video of Malala. This actual video was taken before she was shot, but they were already sacrificing so much. They were sacrificing their professional life, their family life, their sometimes the finances definitely were being sacrificed or risked, and they were risking social status in many cases for this. So those ideas are developed. So then I don't know what we're supposed to do next. Okay, so then I said to watch the video, and then after that they can write about Malala, or write about themselves too, in the sense of what am I willing to risk social status for? I think that's a good place to start, rather than just risking my life, or go against what tradition says in order to make a change that's worthwhile. And what changes are worthwhile to make right here in our immigrant community, that what could help the whole community. So I'm looking forward to see what they come up with. All right. The second thing that I really liked, and I think it goes across to many other topics, is let's see if I can get out of this. Was is the one on vocabulary here, right there. Number 3. And this is a really interesting picture to me, made by Michael Olchepi, something like that. He says you can use these, print these freely as long as his name is on them. That, all right, for an ESL class, I'm just going to hand them out in pairs, one per pair, and they will try to locate as many words as possible and phrases. So we have all kinds of interesting phrases that have to do with Malala's life in here, like hero for a people, right to be treated with dignity, their rights for peace, voice, there will be peace, change, to be speaking against, proud, education, love, fight, all girls, the silence was broken. So powerful statements about Malala written into her face. So as they would list in pairs the phrases that they find, then talk about how that is part of her portrait. It's a word portrait. So then encouraging them to, the next step would be the person in their country that is a person of action, a person of change. What words would you write about them? Just listing words. And these groups, I would also try to make it by continent or by, meaning the people who come from the same continent or the same country, put in groups like that. So they can brainstorm what words would be familiar for them or would go with that particular character. And then the last thing would be for at home, what words would you make on your portrait for yourself? And then for the artistic ones, and I can see this happening for an art class would be really exciting, is looking at the technique of the writing densely and versus the big words. And I think it's very interesting which words are in the light place, the peace, love, and down here says all girls, education, keywords showing up in the light places. So this, I think there's a lot of potential here for the students to get the message of Malala through art and also get the message of Malala through exploring themselves. That it's not just an interesting story, but it's something that could actually change the environment right here. Anybody else want to use this?
I do have to say that OneBook blog has not only lessons plans, but it has the library live guide on it that has a lot of other good resources that you can look at, particularly a lot of the TED Talk videos she did, a lot of her interviews. So you might want to check that out. And you can find that on the blog, or you can find that on the library, off the library webpage.
I was also thinking, so we didn't have to copy lots of these, and after I use them, I just put them in a folder and leave them in the library. So if other people were interested in using something, thank you.
So I'm using the book in my History 111 class, and it's a survey course, and that's where they get their first taste of being introduced to many of the different world religions, particularly Islam. And so a lot of students, I find, when they take this class, they've already have preconceived notions about what Islam is, what a Muslim is, and a lot of times it's erroneous because you're getting fed by what these extremists are doing and what they see in the media. So I usually have them watch this fabulous PBS documentary called Pillars of Faith. And it basically highlights his journey because he was an orphan, and an orphan in a pre-Muslim society was very hierarchical, so he was kind of looked down upon. And so when he has, it's a revealed religion, when the angel came and revealed the truths to him, he made it so that people felt more included. And so a lot of people clamored to this religion, especially women and people who are the lower, I don't want to use the word caste, but lower part of the the tribal system or the clans, and they just felt a lot better. And then, you know, as the Islam movement spread, it actually was a religion where if they did conquer a neighboring territory, that the mosque, the Jewish, I can't remember, is that temples, right?
Temples.
Jewish, yeah, temples. And then the Christian church, a synagogue, thank you. They're basically, you know, just worship the way you want. We're going to leave you alone. And it was a very accepting religion. And then the other flip side that students get shocked by is their advances in the sciences, in the maths. I mean, over in the Middle Ages, we're healing you by praying over dead people's bones, and it's the truth. And we're using vellum, which is sheepskin, to put our books, and the books are chained down. And then you go over to where, you know, the Muslim communities are thriving. You have paper shops on every corner. We're having hospitals where we actually are putting people by symptoms. We realize already that a lot of things are contagious and airborne. We're doing eye surgery. We're creating mathematical problems. We're actually building upon the Greeks, unlike the Christian church, who, you know, did not want anything to do with the Greek or the Roman writings or any of the classicist. The Islamic society was building upon it, and it actually was a beacon to scholars across the globe. And not just that, but their architecture, their gardens, and just, you know, the way they did their irrigation system. So students really walk away with like mind blown, like, wow, I did not realize that this is how it was. And so then what I want to do with this book is have them read excerpts of what the Taliban has done in that country. And I also have on Films on Demand, there's a really nice 20-minute clip. It's called Enemy Within Our Borders. And it's all about the Taliban in Pakistan. And so I want to encourage the discussion, like all religions, because we do this with Christianity. You know, Christianity starts off this very wonderful religion where women are included and are deacons and are heavily involved in the church. And you have the Didache, which is, you know, just a very loose rules of how to run things. And then how do we get to here? So the same thing with Islam. How do we start with this very peaceful kind of loving people who are advanced in sciences and math, and then we get to this part where it's just so extreme that, I don't know if you just read in, you know, just happened in the paper, is that a big swath of the territories are now redoing the education system. And they're throwing out a lot of different curriculum, and it's going to be very, again, with their worldview, that a lot of parents are actually homeschooling their children now. They're pulling them out of school. And of course, when they were interviewed, they were afraid to give their names or anything like that. But if you do a Google news search, you'll see that this is something new that's happening up. You also had the big scandal over in Britain. I don't know if everyone was aware of that, where there were people in the education system, it's one district city schools, where they were completely going towards more of a very militant Islamic education, even over in Britain. So I'm just trying to bring all this tied in with the past, and then bring in what's going on in Malala, which was, you know, several years ago, and then what's still going on currently, particularly with ISIS or ISIL, whatever. I know they keep changing it. But I just think it would be a very interesting thing to get the students to really start thinking about, you know, it's not just Islam, it's Christianity, it's Judaism. There's always these extremist sects that go on in any type of religion or political ideology. So that's just how I plan on using it. It could also be used for History 112, which actually picks up a little bit more during like the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. So does anybody have any questions for the panel? For the English, the health sciences, ESL, or history? Or does anybody else, are they planning on using it in their classes, and how would you do that?
Well, I'm planning to use it for the reading class. It's the reading 080, which is the lower level. So I'm planning to use it for vocabulary, and also when we're talking about vocabulary in context, and also to have them, when we get to the topic of compare and contrast, to also use it for that.
Right.
So, but they're not going to read the whole book, but
Right.
just pieces of it.
Right. I'm not requiring them to read I have a couple excerpts I really want to look at, but I think some of them are actually very drawn into it already, though. So, Tom, did you?
Yeah, I'm using the book, but I have to say that hearing the panel is very humbling to me because, I mean, you're just using it in such inventive and comprehensive ways, and with a lot of depth of thought. Like right now, I'm just quizzing them on it as they read chapter to chapter because I'm finding my way with it. But just in a general sense that I know a great deal of work goes on with this committee every year, but speaking very selfishly, this hour's time is such nutrition for me. I'm very inspired by your work. It makes me feel, does a lot for my morale as a college professor to see my peers doing just extraordinary work and investing in this conversation that's college-wide and is growing. It's just exceptional work. Really great. Oh, and as such, that's my lead-in to how much of it can I steal? Seriously, everything. Can I, honestly, like, that's mine now?
That's why it's up on the
Oh,
blog.
all right.
That's why it's up on
Look
the
what I
blog.
can do. But it's my intellectual property. All right, now it's my intellectual property. I'll say I made it.
I felt a kind of a renewal in my teaching English 102 when I played with the Essex last year. So I was ready to prep this one. And what I've done is made it kind of thematic, where possible. And it's about this risk-taking or making sacrificial decisions for important reasons. And I'm having them read it along with journaling and some quizzes to keep them in harness. But it's going to come together in the fourth quarter of the semester with the novel. So for one class, I've chosen Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And their final paper is going to touch on both books plus their responses. And of course, that's a dystopian novel, and where things are already totally repressive. The other one, Lloyd Jones's Mr. Pip, which is a novel based on all of the troubles in New Guinea from 1997 to 2002, when the UN got in, when they were raiding villages, raping, pillaging, dropping people from helicopters. The government was totally irresponsible. And it took a full 5 years before the UN got in. So I thought that would work in another class. So I don't like to bore myself. I may bore my students, but I don't keep myself on board. So that's how I'm playing with it. Oh, we had a great discussion in the 8 o'clock class this morning. We almost couldn't start class. I let it go on for about 12 minutes. It was, why are we there? And then there were about 6 people who were really popping up and speaking and had opinions. And I could see about 8 of the others said, you know, I haven't been paying attention. I better listen. It was nice.
You know,
Go ahead, no, you go first.
I'm sorry, I saw a purple vision, I saw it over here. I'm listening to all these ideas and they're really kind of stimulating me, you know, and I'm feeling all this energy right now in this fire because I come from another country and, you know, I didn't experience this sort of terrifying experience or risk issues of this sort, but I can relate to some of the things mildly. Yeah, I teach nursing, I teach psychiatric nursing, and we touch upon things such as next semester cultural differences and things like that. We talk about ethical dilemmas, and there's another course that also focuses more on ethics, but human rights is also a big issue that I kind of cover in clinical and the classroom, and I have no problem weaving this book into everything in, you know, in that field. My biggest challenge will be, and it stimulates me to have this challenge, will be the time frame of these nursing students who have so, you know, these 9 credit courses and things like that. But I believe that it's healthy, and I believe it might be even a break for them to be able to escape all that and be able to talk about these certain things. So I'm going to talk to my colleagues and see how we can weave this in for next semester.
I have
And
the,
even if it's just a part of.
I have the curriculum development that I created over the summer, and it's on that website. So, and it's welcome for anybody to share. But then I also had included a couple of other books. I'll just mention it quickly, and then I know you had a comment. The Penguin Atlas of Women in the World is another book, and then Women, Gender, and Human Rights, because you had mentioned some of the other areas that you also include in in your psychiatric nursing classes. So those are two other really good resources that are also listed on this as well. So but they concentrate on women's human rights as well. So be interesting. But they're on here, the resources.
And just before we get to you, I just wanted to add, you bring up a very interesting point about how next semester would be helpful. We've actually discussed as a committee to making OneBook a year-long thing, so that way, if you, like you said, you have it more fit in for the spring semester, and also perhaps instructors didn't quite know how to use the book in the fall, but over time as they see different events and things going on, oh, now I know I could do this in the spring. So that's something we'll be working on, so stay tuned.
I want to echo what Tom said about it being very inspiring, motivating. So now I am going to use it in my class because I don't have anything to prep this semester that's new. So why not, right? But what my question was, maybe to everybody, have you had Muslim students in your classes, any of these classes, and what are their reactions? Do they feel comfortable, uncomfortable with this material? I don't know, I'm wondering.
I have one Muslim student in my class, and actually it was just yesterday that we introduced the idea of the risk and also showed the video. But I talked to him ahead to find out if he'd heard of Malala, and he said just vaguely. He didn't know a lot about her, and I said, "Are you okay?" Just kind of touched base with him. Are you okay with this topic? And he said yes. So anyway, so he was very open and willing. But I was thinking ahead too that it could be very sensitive, especially people from Pakistan, because there's been mixed reviews on how it's.
Oh, it's banned in the country.
Yeah,
It's
right,
banned, right?
Oh, I didn't know it's completely banned.
It's banned.
Yeah. So it does need to be discussed.
I teach online, so I'm not sure, and we haven't quite got to that, so I haven't gotten any feedback. But I can say one of our guest speakers this semester is Shabazz, who is from her area. He knows her family. His father is a politician. His brother was killed, and so the father had to take his family and flee the country. And he's a student here at Bristol Community College. And he did tell me that he read the book, and he said, I agree with her 100%. He said, but people in my country, they get mad, but because it's the truth. He said, it's like it's facing something you don't want to face. And that's what he said to me, so.
Be interesting to have Shabazz's sister come.
She is. She's speaking, actually.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah,
She's
the
on the
education
panel.
Excellent.
Yep, on October 8th at 9:30
Right.
in H220. No, H210.
What day of the week is that?
That's a Wednesday morning. Please bring your class.
And it's on the OneBook blog, the schedule of events, and keep checking back, and the Facebook page. So just keep checking back as we add more stuff, because we're doing more programming. I'm working with someone in New Bedford who's going to do a short play of this for the New Bedford campus, so that should be interesting.
That's great.
Right.
They're writing it?
Yeah, I'm meeting with her Friday, so I'm not quite sure what she wants to do.
I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. One, I come to this event every year. I'm on the OneBook Committee, full disclosure, but I always come to this event even when before I was on the committee. And it's always inspiring. So this has been no different and just as inspiring as ever. But I always walk away with something. There's always something for me to take with me. And two things that for me really stick with me today. One is this idea that you don't have to be an expert on the book to use the book. Now, in some areas, of course, you're going to have to dig in a little deeper to figure out how it relates to your content. But I'm spoiled, because I teach English, so I know that, as Betsy was pointing out, she's saying, I'm reading along with my students, and if your content allows for that, I think that's a great sort of model for other faculty members who are nervous about how much it will take away from, the class, but because we have all these resources, you know, you can kind of get a sense of any of our OneBooks before having to adopt the book. And you don't have to adopt the whole book. You can use excerpts, or you can bring in a video, or you can just bring in some conversation around the topic. And I think that you all did a great job in showing us how we can integrate at whatever level feels right for our content and for our students. And I think for me, I haven't loved every single OneBook choice that we've had over the years. Some I've loved, some I've been, but I've bought into the project from the start. So I feel like, you know, I'm down with it. Like, I'm down with what the community chooses, and I'll find something that works. And I think that more we talk about this, the more I hear that other faculty members are feeling similarly, and I think that's a great message to get out to people, that it's more about the community experience than the individual text. I always feel that way. The other thing I was just going to say is this idea of risk and sacrifice. That's one of my curricular takeaways today, is to think about how to get students to write about that topic, because it's broad, but it's so human, that I think that's going to be one of the things I'm going to add to my course that relates to the text. So thanks.
I'd just like to say several of the activities under ESL use newspaper articles rather than the text. So I think that if that's an easier way to do it in one class, if you want to just like say there's activities coming, and so you can read this article and then it has some questions after it to follow. Be ideal for 090 or are reading 080 even, just reading through that, and at least they have more of a notion what's going on campus too.
Okay, that took care of my time frame issue. I don't have a time frame issue anymore.
Dara's been trying to say something. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to sort of reiterate what the sentiment that's going around, that this has been refreshing. And for me in particular, because when I first read the book, I read it as an American, loving the story of somebody who's overcomes obstacles to achieve success. Then I talked to people. I'm from Pakistan, if anybody didn't know. So then I talked to people in my communities, started to learn about why people didn't like it, the controversy. I looked into that, so I got caught up in this. Malala, but no, not Malala. So this kind of I don't know, this confusion about how to take the book. And I think people in Pakistan, the reason why they're not embracing it is their fear is that this book is being seen as, all girls in Pakistan are forbidden from education. But when you read it, you realize that she makes it clear that it's Swat Valley, where she is from, where the Taliban came, that restricted Pakistani women from getting education. Because she goes out of Swat and she goes to Islamabad, she goes to Karachi, and she sees women who are so successful. So I encourage the people in my community to read it for that. But to come back to my point of why I like this panel so much is because now I can go back to the book and I can say, okay, here's the human connection, here's the universality, the risk-taking of it, that I can now say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to forget about the politics of the book.
Right.
I'm going to forget that this book is about the people of my country. This book is about a girl who took risks, and we all take risks in lives. So thanks for that.
I think what you're saying, Farah, is just so on target, because I'm using only the first chapter of the book this time around, because I think her story is so compelling, and I love the way the first chapter starts. In fact, if she talks about midnight, I think, Rushdie. But people, I think a lot of our students who are struggling readers would get bogged down by some of the book. The political stuff. It's tedious. It's not written in a way that makes you want to read more, but there are parts of it that are so great when it's about her. And for our students to learn more about what she went through and to get a sense of that place. And you make a great point about it being a swamp valley. And well, Pakistan had a female prime minister. We still have not had a
Right.
female prime
Right.
minister. So, think about
Yeah.
that for a minute, in terms of, where we all are. So, I'm getting more ideas as I'm hearing people talk about, what they want to do, even with my one chapter. I think it'll be beautiful and enjoyable. And I'm hoping that when the students read that first chapter, some of them may want to read more of the book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to require it, but I think it'll catch the stronger readers. It'll catch their interest in it.
The prologue is also very good.
The
So
prologue
are you
is
reading
good.
that? I think I'm gonna copy some of that out and do some work with that. Because
I read the
also-
prologue a lot in class, and
Yeah.
students really responded
Prologue
to it.
is, and it's not too long.
But to bring up the first in this first couple chapters, it is this mix of stories about our father and then political history and who was in charge and what happened and then culture and religion. And I think students are struggling with it because it's like all pieced together. So we've talked about, well, why is it written like that? Why? Because it is a complex fabric. All these things came together in different ways for what happened to happen, and so we talk about that as readers, like maybe we don't have to get so bogged down in it. We can just kind of try to read it and digest it and kind of see what picture is forming. And we've talked a lot about that aspect.
Well, what
of
about
it.
her age too?
Yeah.
And it's written with
Yes.
somebody else. So in
Yeah.
terms of the writing, we don't know how that even
Right.
got planned and it's not like Filbert's book.
Right.
Yeah, it's not chronological, and it's a memoir, which is a different type of animal anyway.
I have a quick question for Betsy. How is so far your students reacting to the book? Do you have like that discussion? Do they like it, or are they?
Well, mostly what we're talking about right now is the reading process of it. So sometimes we might kind of talk about what they were surprised about, or I can't believe that, or I can relate to that, or what. Sometimes we'll have those discussions. Often we'll just quickly kind of try to summarize the main points of the chapter, so we make sure everyone's up to speed, and we filled in any gaps. Students might say, why was she writing about this? I was confused about that. What happened? And they'll fill in gaps for each other. But a lot of our discussion in these early chapters has been about the way it's written and why that's a little frustrating for them, but how they're managing it. And they're starting to each find their own strategy with how they're writing about it, or how they're taking notes on it, or whatever they're doing. And some students have found a way to like break it up, or. So mostly it's been about process. I think they're fascinated by different parts of it, but because her story, we're still like the father has opened a school and struggled with it at first, and now it's starting to become more successful, but she hasn't really started school yet. So I think once her story kicks in and it has a little bit more of a linear narrative, there will be more wanting to talk about what's happening to her. But right now it feels a little.
So I know a lot of us have meetings at 3. I know I do. Is there any last questions before we wrap it up? If I did send out a faculty email, I'll resend it just to let me know. If you haven't let me know, we like to keep statistics on who's using the book. It just, maybe one day we'll get more money. So if more faculty are using the book and what your sections are, if you could just pop me an email at Susan Moore. You can find me in your inbox and just let me know, and I can add you to the list. Right now, I only have 17 instructors, and I know there's more than that. So just let me know. Very good. Thank you so much for coming. I really had fun.